And welcome back to another edition of Fight Night Picks Kicks. As always, make sure you head on over to the website, fightnightpicks.com. We get some great stuff over there, including, hey, a written up interview. Tony Gravely, he's got a big fight coming up against Anthony Birchak, as well as our own Joshua Hart's full card betting guide. See what he has over there. His best bets, Romanov, and he's got Cortez and Whittaker, some pop and popcorn fights, all sorts of good stuff over there. And make sure you also check out the store if you want to pick up some of the merch that the boys are wearing on the show. We got the long sleeve logo tee. We got those Under Armour hats and shirts. So check it out. FightNightPicks.com. All sorts of great stuff over on the website. And if you didn't know we had a website, now you know. And without further ado, let's get into it. Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Vertiball. Head on over to their website. It's vertiball.com. And listen, it's an awesome product. It's a local company out of New Brunswick, Canada. So make sure you support those guys locally as well as Fight Night Picks. But they're the only mountable portable muscle massager. They can stick onto any smooth surface. They've got an industrial strength suction cup. Can support over 100 pounds of pressure. You can get really into those deep knots. I have one here at home. I use it for my back and my shoulders from holding up that Fight Night Picks Pick'em trophy. But listen, make sure you check them out. It's a great product. Like I said, they're recommended by physiotherapists, masseuses, and chiropractors across Canada, the US, UK, and Australia. And they're used by countless professional athletes like Minkah Fitzpatrick on screen there, as well as Clelin Ferrell of the Raiders. So if you head into the cart, make sure you check them out. So I've got a Vertiball massager in my cart right there. Use the promo code FNP. You're going to save 10% off your order. You're supporting this company here that I'm very passionate about in New Brunswick, Canada, and you're helping out us as well. So make sure you check them out, vertiball.com, promo code FNP, 10% off your order. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. It's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and Matt Allen.
And just like that, Matt, we are back and always presented by Manscaped. Apparently, we're just throwing that gut bush ad out there early, but listen, I'm really looking forward to this weekend. Last night, we had Bellator 257. It was a great card, so many great fights, and we had kind of the continuation of their light heavyweight Grand Prix, but we're so excited to be talking today about UFC Fight Night, Whittaker versus Gastelum. This main event, a fight that's been over 2 years in the making for UFC 243, rebooked to, well, kind of in a roundabout way now, and it's an awesome fight. So glad to have everybody filling up the chat over there. Keep it going. We got about 156 tuned in right now and only 29 likes, so it doesn't cost you a thing to toss a like, but if you would like to help out the channel, make sure you hit up that super chat, and we will do our best to get over there into the chat. Akash Deep doing a good job over there. Homeless in America saying, what's up, Craig and Matt? Connor Murray is hanging out, and Vicente, the GOAT, is here as well. Like I said, I will do my best, Matt, but overall, I can't contain my excitement. And sometimes you get down on some of these Fight Night cards. This is not one of them.
No, this is a card you can get really, really excited for. And I was saying earlier on our Instagram Live, make sure you check those out before we go live on Question Mark Kicks, but the people were ready to spend $60 on this fight just a couple years ago, and honestly, I kind of feel like both guys have gotten better since then. And yes, it's not for the belt, but Robert Whittaker's looked amazing as of late. Just look at his past two performances against Darren Till and Jared Cannonier. He does look like a new and improved fighter, and I know Kelvin Gastelum had that bit of a losing streak, but you just look at how good he looked against Ian Heinisch. I think we're getting a great version of both guys tonight.
So if this is your first time tuning into Fight Night Picks Kicks, I mean, we got Diago Casas over there, Be Kind Rewind saying smash the like button, and Andrew saying that the hoodies are sweet. I will say the hoodies were a one-off for just the boys, but there's all kinds of great merch over there. I throw the ad out there, but we got the Fight Night Picks Under Armour shirts. We get the Fight Night Picks like MLG jerseys. They're pretty comfortable. I wear those in the office. There's also the Fight Night Picks baseball jerseys, so you can find those all over there. Fight Night Picks shop. I've got them here in the office. They're actually behind the camera. And listen, Matt, today I was feeling a little froggy fresh, and you have no idea what t-shirt I'm wearing.
No idea.
I'm feeling like a chick magnet. I was feeling the CM Punk shirt. We'll see what happens there. But I was feeling like the $5 UFC swag, so I went with my chick magnet Punk shirt. Now, Matt, let's throw the wool over somebody's eyes. Like I said, again, if this is the first time you're tuning into Fight Night Picks Kicks, what we do, we snake through the entire card. We talk about our fight of the night. And like I said, we will do our very best to head on over into that comment section. This Wildlife saying, where's the Fight Night Picks Under Armour hat? I wore it because normally, you know, inside baseball, everything that's there on the chair next to me, because you can't see the chair, is my own stuff, and I wore the hat today, and it's outside of the office is where it is, but there's a bunch of hats over here, so you can pick those up on the website. Either way, Matt, I mean, what we do, we go through the fight of the night, we offer up our final picks, our final thoughts. Unfortunately, Zara Farron decided she wanted to try and make a record by missing weight. Her fight with Josiane Nunes is off. Tracy Cortez missed weight by, half a pound? So there's all sorts of things for us to talk about. So let's flip it on over to our fight of the night screen. And Matt, when we're talking fight of the night, ooh, boy, you have Jake Paul versus Ben Askren. I'm just kidding, but you can still check out that video. Will I buy the Triller card? Yeah, probably, because I'm that guy. But yeah, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to watch it. We'll see what happens there. But if we do focus on over to this card, our co-main event, where did the bad blood come from for this one?
It's something that does make a fight a little bit more exciting, because just Jeremy Stephens versus Drakkar Klose, am I excited for that fight? Well, yeah, those are two very good fighters, two all-action fighters, but now that I know that they hate each other as much as I do now, it just adds a little extra element, a little more excitement to what should be a phenomenal fight. We've seen Jeremy Stephens fight guys like Drakkar Klose in the past, guys like Calvin Kattar, guys to a lesser degree like Jose Aldo, and it's always a very exciting fight, so I really do think that tonight's co-main event is going to steal the show.
Wonderful fight between Jeremy Stephens and the guy himself, Drakkar Klose. Matt, for our uncrowned champ, our uncrowned main event, Alexander Romanov taking on Juan Gonzalez. And I'll go off on this fight, and I'll talk more about it in detail. But you have a guy that has a wrestling background from a type of wrestling that's native to the Canary Islands. He's a Senegalese wrestling champ. They called him the White Lion. He has Sambo in his veins. He's got jiu-jitsu. Well, he's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu. In Juan Espino, and it's just odd. I mean, the guy's 40, but he's still doing the damn thing. And you look at the way that he finished, poor old Jeff Hughes, the scarfold choke. It's insane. For Alexander Romanov taking on Rogerio de Lima, well, he just took him down and pushed his forearm into his neck and, put him to sleep.
Juan Espino ages like a fine wine. He really does. And we might be honestly seeing Juan Espino future champ at about the age of 49, because the streak that he's on right now, here's the first thing. Hey, Juan, just be in the cage more often. That's the first thing that's really important. And for Alexander Romanov, one of the more exciting prospects just because of his fighting style. And I was trying to describe how he fights to a friend of mine who doesn't watch MMA at all. And I was like, just think of the biggest guy in WWE and all those big belly-to-belly suplexes they do. It's basically what he gets away with in an MMA cage. It is unlike any other fighting style out there. So I'm super excited for this fight at heavyweight.
Matt, we'll see what happens. Love all of those fights, and we'll whip it back over to the main screen. Like I said, always presented by Manscaped. Make sure you check them out, manscaped.com. Use promo code FNP. You're going to get 20% off and free shipping on your order. But Matt, again, what we always do, we go from bottom to top. If you miss anything, and it happens, we go over it again at the end of the show. I will offer up the Fight Night Picks Kicks parlay, as I always do. And I've got a pretty good one this week, and I think it's a fairly decent one. It's been hitting week over week, so we will see what happens. But going over there to the comment section, listen, a lot of people are really looking forward to those fights. Walter Huff wants us to turn up the mics. Walter, I'll turn it up a little bit for you. How about that? I just turned that one up. And Laos Nan is saying we'll be sad because I'm rooting for Juan. We'll see what happens. That one is a really tricky fight between Espino and Romanov. I would leave it off my card. We're saying Tony Romo over there. And Nick K is saying both these guys are better than top 10 or 11 to 15 currently ranked UFC heavies. I don't think I can hang with them. And I don't think he was talking about us.
No, but I do think Romanov and Espino, to his point, they could. Whoever wins that fight deserves a ranked opponent next. I do think that much needs to be said.
All right, Matt. So we'll start at the start. We have Tony Gravely taking on Anthony Birchak. And this is for me where the Fight Night Picks Kicks parlay kicks off. And I was honestly surprised. Over 1.5 rounds. And everybody says, well, they don't have those here. They don't have those there. My site has them, and when I went on Best Fight Odds, they had them. While I was writing my notes, getting ready for the show, minus 145 was the over 1.5 rounds. That's what I'm going with for the parlay. My pick is still Tony Gravely in this one. Again, we talked about it, getting ready for this fight. He's training with Adriano Moraes, Kyoji Horiguchi, and on and on and on about the training partners that he does have. But it's really worked out well for Tony Gravely. You look at the one loss in the UFC, Brett Johns. Is Anthony Birchak better than Brett Johns? I don't really think so. He is a grappler, and he does have that wrestling pedigree. So really, these guys match up incredibly well. I expect somebody to force the action, somebody to get the takedown, and it's going to be overwhelming for one of the two.
Birchak's never got the respect he deserved in the UFC, and I do feel like that much needs to be said, because losing to a guy like Brett Johns, like you had said, he's probably better than Birchak. I know he's no longer in the UFC, but Brett Johns is one of the better grapplers out there, really unorthodox in the way that he grapples, so I just feel like I have to defend Brett Johns to a certain degree. I do agree with you, though. I do really like the wrestling of Tony Gravely, but he is one of those fighters that I know we're feeding this fat horse probably a bit too much at this point, but he can wrestle himself into exhaustion. Now, Birchak is the type of opponent who might be able to capitalize on that, but definitely not until later on in that second, probably later on into the third round, if there is going to be a stoppage. So I do agree with you. More likely than not, this is definitely going to go past 1.5 rounds, but I also agree with the pick. I like Tony Gravely in this. Just his wrestling is such a dominant aspect that he can bring into most of his fights, that until he is fighting those really unheralded guys who are outside the top 15 or guys who are in the top 15, he's going to be able to just out-wrestle a lot of his opponents.
And Laos Non saying, what happened to Birchak? He looks like what Aragorn would have looked like. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's really weird, and we talked about it, and there was a comment out there, and I wanted to kind of go back and talk about the comment, because sometimes that's a fun thing to do, but there was one of those ones out there that said, well, Birchak left the UFC on a win, and you guys said that doesn't happen very often. Gegard Mousasi left the UFC on 6 wins. Well, that's even more odd. Like, it doesn't normally happen where you have a fighter either on a win streak or leave on a win. I mean, the big one that sticks out to me was Gerald Harris. Like, he had a 3-1 record in the UFC, and then they were like, all right, see you later.
Nikita
Krylov. But yeah, for Birchak, you know, he had a weird run in the UFC. He left. And then it was bad, and then it was good. So it's been good until he made his short notice reappearance. He took on the man himself, Gustavo Lopez, and it was one-way traffic. Lopez a good fighter. I know he didn't look great against Adrian Yanez, but again, level competition. Yanez looks pretty good. For Gravely, though, if you have a look at Fight Night Picks over on Instagram, we always put out the votes in the morning on Saturday. Yikes. 87% of fans going with Gravely to 13% that have Birchak. Like I said, I'm still going with Gravely in this one, and you are as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's not like I think Gravely has the highest ceiling in this division, but we've kind of seen where Birchak sort of caps out skill-wise, and I do think Tony Gravely's the better martial artist out of the two.
All right, we're both going with Gravely. As we move on to our next fight, we have Harry Bush, Dakota Bush, and I went to the UFC's website. They didn't have Harry's as nickname, so we'll see if we get that announced during the fight. But Dakota Bush making a short notice call-up to the UFC, taking on Austin Hubbard, who was originally paired with Natan Levy, a pretty good wrestler, and a guy who's pretty good at karate, too. And if you look at it, I mean, Austin Hubbard, pretty good at everything. He's one of those, like, really good cardio machines. We've seen that in just about all of his fights, unless he gets finished, that he can really kind of withstand a lot of pressure. And whether it's championship rounds, like his fight against Killis Moda, or his fight against Marco Madsen, world, renowned wrestler, Olympic wrestler, he can really kind of win out in certain exchanges. For me, Austin Hubbard, maybe he doesn't win the first round, but for Hubbard, you got to win the second round. You know he's going to win the third. You got to win the second round. You're taking on a guy in Dakota Bush, and listen, I was over there, MMA prospects, so Sean Bitter, Kristen King, there were a few different people profiling this fight, and they said, Dakota Bush, this guy has a super high ceiling. Some were saying top 15. Some were saying, like, borderline. His striking's good. His power's good. His wrestling's good. His cardio's pretty good. And in the fights that he loses, he gets beat by, well, really, really, really good wrestlers. Like Jaleel Willis weighed in over. He was a big guy for 55. He's a welterweight now with Bellator. He just beat Mark Lemminger. But for Dakota Bush, you know, first round, he won. Second round, third round, get dominated by Willis. That's why this one's interesting. I would leave this one off my card because I honestly don't have a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Confidence?
I don't have a lot of confidence in it. And I'm being totally honest. And I've overanalyzed this one all week, so I want to get your thoughts.
So Austin Hubbard is a very difficult fighter to fight because he kind of has that Max Holloway rule to when you're fighting him. If you don't beat him in the first round, the second round's going to get worse. And if Austin Hubbard wins the first round, I fully expect him to win the second and the third after it. That's the thing. When you're fighting a guy like Hubbard, and you set this up really well, his cardio is such a factor that he can really use his cardio as an offensive tool. And with someone like your boy Harry Bush over to the right, it is going to be really difficult. And for Bush, his game plan, he's going to really have to bring the fight to Hubbard. Close that distance, because the thing with Hubbard is he's a really good rangy striker. Yes, he can use his cardio and his volume and output, but if he keeps his attacks going up the middle, the things that we like to talk about to really defend wrestlers and keep them off you, that's what Austin Hubbard's really good at doing. So I do see Hubbard really just picking up his volume as this fight progresses, and if the first round's going his way, I more than expect the second and the third round to also go his way.
At Fight Night Picks over on Instagram, for the votes, 286 for Hubbard to 118 for Bush. That's 71% going with Hubbard. Like I said, I'm sticking with Hubbard, but it's somewhat reluctantly here.
We've seen both guys kind of struggle with the same opponents, you know, because the guys who beat Hubbard, he has good takedown defense, but the great grapplers can get him down and they can really kind of smother him. And same thing for Bush. So it will be interesting to see whose style really wins out.
I mean, Phoenix has Bush. Sean V has Bush. You've got Laos Nan with Bush. You've got Nick H that's got Harry Bush. I see it. Listen, I'm not going to argue with you. I think this is a toss-up because for Dakota Bush, again, really, really aggressive, really good footwork on the outside. He's a better striker to me. Can he weaponize his cardio? We'll see what happens. You know that Hubbard can. It's a tricky one. So, yeah, I'm going with Hubbard.
I agree. I think Hubbard probably by decision, but that should be a very fun fight.
Yeah, I honestly have a really hard time with it. Todd's enjoying himself. We have an interesting fight between the judo practitioner and the grappler. Fabinski versus Meerschaert. And this is another one of those ones where, well, can Fabinski start rinsing and repeating with the takedown, or does he get caught in a defensive submission? That's pretty much his big kryptonite.
I mean, if you watched Gerald Meerschaert's last fight, really all you have to do is walk forward and throw an overhand right. Now, if you can catch him with that, hopefully he goes down early, and I don't think Bartosz Fabinski has that Khamzat Chimaev type of power in his punches, but I do think that he can take a little bit from that fight. I think Fabinski can strike a little bit with Meerschaert in this fight, where in some of his fights he might strike a little bit too much. In this one, I think he can try to open up with his hands a little bit, then incorporate his wrestling as the fight progresses, whereas Meerschaert, here's the problem for Meerschaert. He's a decent counter striker when guys are moving towards him, and if he is able to catch you with a hard strike, then maybe he can wobble you to the degree where he takes you down and can start to work a submission game. But my problem is, I don't see a world where Meerschaert can take up Fabinski, and I can see Fabinski taking down Meerschaert over and over again in this fight. So for me, I do like Bartosz Fabinski, but I think we get a really, really fun scramble fest fight out of this one.
It's weird because when Fabinski wins, he's super, super imposing, and you talk about a guy that can weaponize his cardio, even for an older guy. Bartosz just goes and goes and goes. He's like an Energizer bunny. Now, and I've seen a lot of people in the comments section talking about Bellator last night. Is Bartosz Fabinski like late career Phil Davis, whose cardio just started to wane as the fight went on? That was weird. Maybe that's this Fabinski, but a guy that trains at a WCA, we talked about it. I mean, Marian Silkowski has a big fight coming up, but he also trains with Jan Blachowicz as well. For Gerald Meerschaert, the grappling ace, the whiz, so to speak, at Rufus Sport, is he able to get another one of those submissions? And this guy holds, or is tied for the record, most submission wins in middleweight history with 5. You got Damian Maia up there. You got some other big names. Shoeface is no longer with the promotion. Just my 2 cents is hanging out. Yeah, I mean, it is a tricky one. Steven Bridson saying, doesn't Harry Bush know about Fight Night Picks 20% off deal? He should. You do. Seems like everybody does.
So should by now.
Check it out, manscaped.com, and I'll talk about my nuts later on. But Matt, again, Fabinski, Poland against the United States of America. 257 total votes for Fabinski to 174. It's good for 60% with Fabinski. It seems like there's people that are thinking Meerschaert, like I said, the defensive submissions. You saw it from Fabinski the last time he went out against Andrea Muniz. It was like, hey, I'm not going to tuck my head. I'm not going to hide it. Go for it. And Muniz got it. And then he kind of got up and it was like, oh, we're triangle, transition armbar, and then Fabinski's done.
Meerschaert's slow. That's my problem. And just in a sport where speed kills, Gerald Meerschaert is not on that side of athleticism. He has much more of that slow twitch muscle, if you will. He does have good cardio. I do see this being one of those fights where if Meerschaert could just not get finished for the first 2 rounds, maybe he can make something happen later on. But no, I do like Fabinski. I do think that he will be able to put it on him with his wrestling game. And if you're the one defending a lot of takedowns, trying to work your back up to your feet, you're going to get tired a lot faster. So I do like Fabinski in this fight.
Nicholas Thompson saying, whoever you pick, it's a trap. I leave it off my card, but I'm going to enjoy the fight nonetheless. Matt, our next one, Jessica Penne.
What was your pick on the last fight?
Oh, well, I had Fabinski.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Going Fabinski. You going
No,
Fabinski?
I agree, Fabinski.
Yeah, a lot of people were fired up because I did the over 1.5, but it's Fabinski as the pick. So we'll move on to our next one. Sorry. We have Jessica Penne taking on Loopy Godinez, the Canadian-Mexican fighter. Holy smokes, does she look good all the way up through. And again, MMA prospects, to give credit where credit's due, very, very high in her. I saw one, member of the article saying, top 5 potential. And while she's still early in her career, a win over Jessica Penne would still mean a lot. Just name value-wise, that's a really big win to have. And it's tricky because if you beat Jessica Penne, then who do you fight? It's weird, right?
It really is, but this is my one big problem. Beating Jessica Penne doesn't mean that much anymore. Like, to you and me, who follow the sport and who have been watching for a really long time, we remember how good Penne was, but, and I know I'm going to bring up the Georgia Stanhope fight, but just bear with me. It's not like Jessica Penne can come back and she has that one-punch knockout power that really every heavyweight just possesses by being a heavyweight. For Penne, she is a good grappler, she has good head and arm throws, she has good grappling, but I don't see her going into this fight just getting a quick finish.
Dev the Dude hitting us up in the super
Thank
chat with the $9.99 saying, let's get into it, boys. Check out my picks on Instagram. Gerald, Dog of the Day. Dev the Dude went 9-4 last night, if I'm not mistaken, with his Bellator picks, so go follow him on Instagram. Friend of the show. So, yeah, I mean, Jessica Penne, it's a weird fight. It just is. And I mean, for her, she was getting ready for Hannah Goldie a couple of weeks ago. Then they moved it to this card. Then it fell out. For Loopy Godinez, she just beat a fighter that's somewhat similar to what I would think of with Jessica Penne in my head. Just a little bit with Vanessa Demopoulos. Do you call her Crystal? Do you call her Vanessa? I don't know. But Loopy looked amazing. Her striking was great. Her defensive grappling was there. Just focus on the first 3 rounds and forget about 4 and 5 because Demopoulos started to come back a little bit. But Godinez looked good. I get that the level of competition hasn't been great, but it's, what have you done for me lately? And MMA is a what have you done for me lately sport. If I've learned anything from doing fight night picks.
Level of competition as of late, she's just been active, and that's really the big thing. For Penne, you've heard that, okay, she had that fight she was supposed to have against Goldie. She rolled her ankle the morning of the fight, so then she wasn't able to fight. That's been a while.
That was Jody Escobar.
Sorry, Jody Escobar. So, and that fight was years ago. That's what I mean. Every time you think about Jessica Penne, it's not like we think about her recent outings, because there just haven't been any. I think about her losses to Andrade, her loss to Jędrzejczyk, and her loss to Danielle Taylor. Like, the last fighter who she lost to probably isn't even as good as Godinez. So I just don't really know what Penne is going to give us in this fight. Maybe she's added a new wrinkle in the last 4 years since we have seen her, but I like Godinez quite a bit in this fight.
And I mean, if we have a look at Fight Night Picks over on Instagram on this one, 273 total votes for the Canadian, Mexican, Canadian, Loopy Godinez, and 125 for Penne, 69% for Godinez. But that's the thing. It's a devil you know in this case, but at the same time, where Penne's been out for so long, you just don't know. This is shades of Jarges Daniel and Jorgen Castro in a sense. I worry about it for that reason. You don't know what you're going to get out of Penne. I would assume you're going to get some striking, you're going to get some grappling out of her, and she's going to want to take it to the mat against Godinez, but who knows?
I mean, Craig, those are all the aspects of MMA, so I would expect her to pick at least one of them. But yeah, I like Godinez quite a bit. Just the prospect of a much higher ceiling at this point in her career.
All right, Matt, we're both going with Godinez. Matt, let's move into our next fight. Holy smokes, who isn't excited for this one? When I saw this originally from Marcel Dorf's Twitter, month and a half ago, I got up. This is the uncrowned main event between uncrowned champs, if there ever were one. You look at Alexander Romanov representing Moldova. The guy has a sumo background with his wrestling. And for Juan Espino, if you want to go through a trip, make sure you go check out Alan Murphy MMA on Twitter. He has a great thread on Juan Espino's wrestling career. He took up a weird style of wrestling that's native to Canary Islands. And if you watch the video, he picks the guy up, throws him down, and then he's out. And then you look at him in Senegal. He was known as the White Lion, wrestling with Senegalese wrestling. I mean, who do we know that wrestles out of Senegal? Rug? Like, there's some pretty good wrestlers. We also had a fighter that was supposed to be taking on, it was Bombardier that was supposed to be fighting Pudzianowski with KSW. That didn't happen. But Juan Espino used to be a Senegalese wrestler. He also has a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He also trains an American top team with Alexei Olenek, Junior Dos Santos. Andre Arlovski is on this card. And his only loss is way back when to Vitaly Minakov. So maybe don't focus on that. It's years and years and years ago. But I love this fight. It's such a fun one. To me, it's two of those fighters that I just love to watch. So it's appointment viewing for me. I know you love it as much as I do.
This is such an exciting fight. It really is. And I know we have two of the oldest prospects other than Eric Silva in UFC's history. But this really is a fight of guys who really could be in that top 15 sooner rather than later. You look at other people in top 15. Marcin Tybura, Blagoy Ivanovs. Like, not that these guys have the same style as those, but you can compare and contrast their styles quite a bit. I think Alexander Romanov is just a very bad matchup for Juan Espino. And it's not that I don't think Juan Espino could probably beat guys in the top 15 right now, but my issue is that Espino really needs the wrestling to take guys down and then really incorporate his grappling game. I doubt there's many situations where he's going to be the one taking down Alexander Romanov. And I do understand he does have some of the background in the wrestling, but my problem is he's trained a little bit of wrestling, whereas Romanov, his whole life has been dedicated to wrestling. And
Juan Espino's been a wrestler like all the time.
But my issue is that Juan Espino's not going to go in there and takedown Alexander Romanov. If anyone's getting the takedown, it's going to be Romanov over Espino. Now, could Espino maybe get a sweep and end up on top in that sequence? Maybe he could, but for my money, I just think Romanov's going to be the one on top the majority of this fight. Now, when it comes to striking, neither one of these guys are all that great at it. If Romanov tries to take some big wild shot, Espino might be able to catch him off balance and maybe crack him a little bit, but I wouldn't really expect either guy going for any fight finishing sequences on the feet. So I like Romanov, but I do think this is as good of a fight as any other one on the card.
If there was a William Wallace in the chat for Juan Espino, it's Meat Boy MMA, and Adnan, you're both feeling the man himself, Juan Espino. So you lead that charge and you let everybody know. It's a tricky one. I do have a really hard time. I'm going to show that tweet. Listen, you got a lot of people feeling the picks. Eldar's got Romanov by TKO. Bondfish says you've got Espino. It is a tricky one. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be weird because if you look at Romanov through all of his fights, well, for the majority of them, I mean, A, he's undefeated, but B, if he wants to strike, low stance, his hands are low, like Dovletsan Yegshimradov, but he does keep his hands low, but he moves forward. He throws a lot of front kicks. He'll throw kicks to the body. He'll throw kicks to the head. He's a little wild, whereas Juan Espino, way better footwork. He kind of whiffs that overhand right to close the distance to take you down. For Espino, his last win, a scarf hold choke against Jeff Hughes, and if you can picture that, it's just Big Brother pulling him in. And for Romanov, we just stuck his forearm into Rogerio de Lima's throat and put him to sleep. It was the biggest meathead MMA. I'm surprised, or Meat Boy MMA rather. I'm surprised you're not going with Romanov for that reason. Bob Collins hitting us up in the super chat saying, "Let's get into it, boys.
Thank you.
Have a great fight night. Hate you guys. Appreciate." Like I'm just some kid off the street. Like I'm just hanging out with the boys. Appreciate. 78% of fans going with Romanov to 22% that are going with Juan Espino. I do, again, I have a tough time looking at this one ostensibly. Espino's got all the tools. Romanov's got a lot of tools. I know you're going Romanov, right?
Are you picking Espino?
Nah, I'm still going with Romanov.
Okay, then there was a lot of build up there for Espino. No, I do like Romanov. On the feet, these guys are just going to cancel each other out. There's just... No one's winning rounds on the feet in this fight, if that makes any sense. Neither guy, I don't think, is going to have a sequence big enough to really prove that, oh, wow, they won the round because of the work that they did on the feet. Now, if Espino can go out there, get a single leg, get Romanov on his back, he will have a lot of success. But my issue is that's going to be a really hard position to get into in the first place. Whereas if Romanov's on top, I don't think he's going to finish Juan Espino just by getting on top. But I do think that's a position that he can at least hold for at least minutes in the rounds. And maybe he can win decision that way. So, yeah, I'm still going with Romanov.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see. And Kevin Holland over in the chat, if that's really you, you're just the worst. You're just the worst. So you're a donkey. All right, Matt, we'll move on to our next fight, our featured prelim. Yikes, I don't know why that one isn't, but we have Tracy Cortez taking on Justine Kish. And for Justine Kish, it's weird, right? Because some fights she looks like a grappler, but really she's a striker, and she's taking on the perennial grappler in Tracy Cortez, who fought all of her fights at flyweight until her last two when she came into the UFC. She beat Maria Agapova on Contender Series, and then she fought Vanessa Mello and then Stephanie Egger. And they were at 35. And then she comes back down to 25. And I remember at the start of the week, well, you know, the thirst trap pictures on Instagram, they look good, but hopefully the weight's there. And then she misses weight. So Tracy Cortez misses weight. I will say, though, I still do have, as Matt Adams asks, Tracy Cortez, she's still the second leg of the Fight Night Picks *Kicks parlay. So if you're playing along at home, let me check here in my notes because I did write it down. We'll figure them out. The QMK parlay is over 1.5 rounds. Gravely Birchak, I got it at -145. And Cortez at -320. That ends up at +122. I'm still going with Tracy Cortez in this one again. If you watch any of her fights, she is a premier wrestler in the division. For Justine Kish, she can give up the takedowns, and it's not like she's the most active fighter off of her back. So for those reasons, I'm going with Cortez. For Kish, does train with Vanessa Demopoulos. That could help her in this fight. I just have a hard time going with Kish.
You talk about Vanessa Demopoulos like she's Amanda Nunes. Like, beating her really tells us a lot. Here's
One
the thing.
day.
Justine Kish, her grappling's not bad if she's in the top position, but her takedown defense isn't very good. And off her back, like you had said, she's not an active fighter. It's not like she's really throwing up a lot of triangles or elbows or even trying to work back up to her feet. Works a lot from a closed guard. And really, that plays into the game plan of Tracy Cortez. What's she good at? Getting the takedown, ground and pound finish. That's pretty much it. Now, for Cortez, I'm a little concerned about the weight miss. I won't lie. That could really affect her cardio depending on how hard of a weight cut it was. So let's say she is getting a lot of takedowns in that first and second round and really exerting herself a lot. We might see a very fatigued Cortez in that last round, but my problem is Kish isn't a finisher. I really doubt that even if Cortez is really fatigued in that third round, the Kish can go out there and finish her. I think a 10-8 round would be the best bet at that point. So I do like Cortez quite a bit, but the weight cut does concern me ever so slightly.
So Matt, so far through all of these, I mean, it seems like we haven't switched any picks. We haven't differed on any. If you go over to Fight Night picks, I think this is the biggest spread out of all of them. 358 total votes. Cortez to 50 for Kish. That's good for 88% going with Tracy. Cortez, and like I said, that's the second leg of the Fight Night Picks Kicks parlay with the over 1.5 rounds. In the first fight of the night, Birchak and the man himself, Tony Gravely. Great interview with JHK and Tony Gravely. And if we're talking interviews, Patricio Pitbull, the double champ, just had an interview with him released on the channel yesterday. If you missed that, I'm not joking. I'm not blowing smoke. It was great. He talked about Volkanovski, he talked about McGregor, he talked about Khabib, he talked about AJ McKeon, the matchup that's coming up.
One of the greatest fighters ever.
Really hit up on some big topics, so make sure you check that out. And Laos Non saying how do fake eyelashes work in the UFC. Good question. Maybe I'll call in my wife, because that's what she does for her work. But she watched Tracy Cortez fight one time and went, whoa. What is this? And how does it work? Good question. Maybe I'll get a video for responding to it. There you
go.
Voodoo Wiz saying y'all are the GOAT MMA show. Respect, appreciate that. And Anthony, that's just not funny. Come on now. I'm just kidding. Luis Pena taking on Alexander Munoz. Really interesting fight. I mean, for Munoz, this is a guy that is, of course, the wrestling coach at Team Alpha Male. What does Team Alpha Male have? Well, they've got the great striker Raymond Daniels, but if you watch his fight last night, he's now a wrestler and a grappler, so maybe he learned a thing or two from Alexander Munoz. But in a fight like this, Munoz, the wrestler, Pena, well-rounded, I would say.
Well-rounded with no takedown defense. If he gets on top, he's got great ground and pound. We saw that in the Matt Wyman fight, and I understand. Matt Wyman way past it, but still, he is a really good grappler, and that's the one thing. People get it twisted and think, if you beat an older guy who's a grappler, it's like beating an older guy who's a striker. If you're old, you're a striker, it means that A, you probably can't absorb damage all that well anymore, and B, your just reflexes aren't there. If you're a grappler and you're old, look at Damian Maia. Like, he was getting a lot of his best work done later on in his career. So for Pena, it is kind of weird because he's got great top position. We saw that in the Wyman fight. And again, Wyman, really good grappler. So if you're out grappling a guy like Matt Wyman, that's a lot, or that proves more to me, I guess, than if Luis Pena just went out there and jabbed Matt Wyman from distance and knocked him out at range on the feet, because Wyman, not a great striker. But I do think that Pena has shown some improvements in his grappling game while he's been in the UFC. But the problem is, look at how bad he looked against Kama Worthy.
Go over to the comments section. Amanda Carhart, no way you're getting me on video, but fake eyelashes, yeah. I mean, but so much more if you get them in your eye. Fix the comment. But there she is, so there's the comment.
So yeah, Luis Pena, if he gets top position, I think he can really damage Alex Munoz. And here's the thing, Alex Munoz is a way better wrestler than Luis Pena. He is. I don't think I'm saying this isn't like a Skip Bayless hot take in sumo wrestling and whatnot. But my issue is, he is really one-dimensional. And I do think Alex Munoz is the type of fighter who, once he does get fatigued, and we see this a lot of guys who don't have a lot of experience, but they do have a really good wrestling background. Once they get fatigued, it's a lot of those lazy shots for takedowns where, I'm just going to kind of walk forward with my hands down. Because for Munoz, he's not a bad striker, but he's definitely more on the wrestling side of a wrestle boxer than what we normally see come out of Team Alpha Male. So for Munoz, I just don't like the fact that he is so one-dimensional. I do think that the one dimension he brings is kind of Pena's kryptonite, but other than out wrestling Luis Pena for one round, maybe two, if he is lucky, he could win 2 rounds. I do see Pena winning this fight. I think he can sweep Munoz, get on top. I really like the work Pena can do from range with his knees and elbows too. And the one thing about Pena, does he give up the takedown? Yes, he does. That is his weakness, but he normally does make guys pay for at least going for those takedowns. So I am going to play into the well-roundedness of Luis Pena over the more one-trick pony Alexander Munoz.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of a tricky thing because for Pena, you look at it and his takedown defense is kind of like Swiss cheese. And it has been, he has fought some wrestlers. I mean, the Matt Frevola fight, split decision, so how did you see it? He didn't look
bad in that fight, and that was a weird fight too, because that was kind of like Vadim Nemkov, Phil Davis 1, where it was like, oh, wait, Luis Pena kind of doing okay in the wrestling, and Matt Frevola kind of doing okay on the feet, but that is a fight that I do really think if you look at that fight, Luis Pena almost beat Matt Frevola, who is a more well-rounded version of what Alexander Munoz is, in my mind at least.
If we go over to the votes at Fight Night Picks over on Instagram, talk about it all the time, there's a large percentage, 62% they're going with Pena, 276 votes to 170. I have a tricky time with this one. I mean, I did it at the start of the week when we differed on the pick. I'm actually going to switch over from the guy that looks just like Michael Chandler. I will go with Pena, and it's one of those ones where, in my mind's eye, when I thought about it too much, it was, okay, Mike Trezano, what did he do? Well, he controlled Luis Pena. And the Frivola fight was close, and Kama Worthy wrestled and rolled with him, but Alexander Munoz is just takedown, takedown, takedown. And sometimes that works against other wrestlers if you can out-wrestle the wrestler like he did with Nick Newell. Like, it was all him over Newell. Or if you focus on his fight where he was able to get the win on Dana White's looking for a fight where Rachel Ostovich hung out sometimes. Like, yeah, you can win fights like that. I think Luis Pena is going to be a really tricky one. I talked about it in the original video, some of the work that he had been doing at American Top Team with some of the coaches. But again, credit where credit's due. Anderson Franca is the guy he's been training with. I can see knees up the middle, elbows up the middle. We say that a lot for guys taking on wrestlers, but for Pena, I do think he's going to have a good opportunity here. So I'm going to side with Pena, actually.
Yeah, no, again, I had Pena to start of the week. I'm sticking with him. I do think that he can just get a lot more work done at range. Whereas Munoz, all the success he's going to have in this fight is when they are chest to chest. He's going to have to walk through quite a bit to really get into that position in the first place. So, yeah, I'm still going with Pena.
All right, Matt. We're both going with Pena. Gozbach's going with Pena. Bronson. Munoz wins. Craig switched. It's a lock. Okay, Bronson, you're a donkey. Matt, we move on to our next fight. Abdulrazak Alhassan taking on Jacob Malcoon. Matt, I don't know what's going to happen, but this probably isn't going to go to a decision. If you do look at it, though, in the 4 wins that Malcoon has, 2 of them by decision. And if you look at Abdulrazak Alhassan, well, all 10 of his wins are by knockout. And out of his 3 losses, what? Yeah, 3. He's had a few by decision. The Munir Lazez one, that was by decision. It was a weird one. He got outclassed in rounds 2 and 3. And then his last time out, he got knocked out by Chaos Williams. Now, this one being at 185, and I did update all of the weights for this. So if you look on it, they're both 185.5. Great to see. Professionalism. Because for his last fight, he weighed 172.5 for 170. You kind of worry. The guy's getting older. The weight cut was affecting him negatively. And this guy is thick as all get out. I like the fight. Interesting fight. James Brown hits up the super chat. What are you thinking?
I don't have a lot to say about this fight. I really don't. If Malcoon can somehow tire out Abdulrazak Alhassan and maybe get him to the ground in like the 2nd or 3rd round, because we know Alhassan doesn't have great cardio, then Malcoon could win this fight. Alhassan brings a big storm, though, in that first round, and you do have to weather that if you want to get to the version of this fight where you might get him down, tire him out. I just think Alhassan's going to hit him with one of those big flurries, and I hate that Jacob Malcoon is being bunched in right now with, the AJ Agazarms of the world, the Dylan Danis's and the Artem Lobovs, but he really hasn't shown us that much outside of just being Robert Whittaker's training partner, so I am going to stick with Alhassan in this fight, but I got to be honest, I'm not that confident in either guy.
No, and that has to be said. I mean, you look at the line, Abdulrazak Alhassan, still a really big favorite, open minus 350, he's minus 304. The line bumped up, and all week it's gone back down for Alhassan. Malcoon's a plus 241. I don't like that line. I think it's kind of silly. To me, yeah. Alhassan's gassed in his last 2 fights. Since he's come back from his long layoff. And he wasn't losing. Like, he was 10-1 beforehand. Now you're 10-3. You've lost 2 in a row, and you had to move up a weight class. Like, what is he, Johnny Hendricks?
But here's the one thing. I do think that the weight cut was a big reason as to why his cardio wasn't great at 170. I actually do think him moving up in weight might help his gas tank, at least to a degree where Jacob Malcoon won't just be able to win this fight by moving forward and trying to wrestle.
Ty Holmes, Malcoon is Malcolm Gordon. Boys, that hurts as a Canadian right there. Yikes. But, yeah, we'll see what happens. James Brown, did they cover Dakota Bush? You had up the super chat, James, so, yeah, we did, but we'll go back to it. We both had Hubbard. Yeah, I like Alhassan in this one.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Matt. And, yeah, we move on to our next fight. Andre Arlovski taking on Chase Sherman. For Sherman, it's weird, right? You do your research for these fights, and we do it separately. Then we come together, then we do the video. And the Topology votes, we don't look at them until, we are filming, so we keep it up at the top and scroll down, so it's a surprise for us, and it is for you. And I looked at this fight, and every single site of Chase Sherman, Jackson Wink, or what was it, American Top Team, D'Iberville, Mississippi. And then if you really read into it, watch the interviews, he's training at Elevation. And nobody really talked about it a whole lot. And for Chase Sherman, plenty of heavyweights there. I mean, Curtis Blades, Alistair Overeem, and so on and so forth. You get to work with really good striking coaches. You get to work a little bit with Trevor Whitman. I'll be interested to see what, if anything, Chase Sherman's able to bring into his game. For Andre Arlovski, the guy's been at ATT forever. We've seen...
No, he hasn't. He was at Jackson Wink for a long time.
He's been at ATT for a while now. That's true. And he's trained with a lot of really good fighters. I mean, Nikita Krylov, one of those guys. You get to work... JDS. Alistair... Well, not Alistair Overeem. I wanted to say, who? Alexei Olenek. There's all sorts of good fighters. For Arlovski, and I look at it in the comments section, AG saying Arlovski looking to make up for the last one. Sherman's off the juice. I don't know about that. Sherman is, though, coming off USADA suspension. So a lot of weird things coming into this one. And Sherman originally supposed to take on Parker Porter, and now you get Arlovski. That's big time.
Yeah, and this is the weird thing, too. I don't think you can go into a fight with a Parker Porter game plan and then expect to beat Arlovski with that game plan. Because Parker Porter... You know when they talk about NBA centers, you have like a big body center, which would be like Joel Embiid. And
Bismack, you got Bismack, Biyombo.
Well, no, and then you've got a thinner one, like a Chris Boucher, for instance. More of a power forward, but can step up and play the 5. Andre Arlovski can just do everything. He really can, and it's weird because the older that he's got, he's kind of like a Kevin Love. He used to be that stereotypical heavyweight, but now he's gotten a little bit slimmer, and he has a different kind of a game. He does fight a lot more like a middleweight now than he used to fight like a heavyweight, because what do we talk about a lot of the times? We talk about lower level heavyweight fights. Hey, this fight's going to be good, but after that first round, it's probably going to fall off. Andre Arlovski could be 50 years old, and I'm never going to worry about his cardio in a 3-round atmosphere, because one of the things about him, he is in his 40s, he can keep up a really nice pace, and he has a good output to go along with that pace too. And for a guy who is a little bit older, normally you would expect people like Arlovski of, oh wow, he's 41, he's probably going to start to get tired in his fights. The one thing that hasn't gone away from Arlovski has been his cardio. He's always kept a very good cardiovascular, and that is the one thing going into this fight. I know it is short notice for Arlovski, but he is kind of one of those guys who famously does stay in shape year-round. One of those guys who, before MMA became kind of that full-time sport when it was sort of the Tank Abbotts of the world, Andre Arlovski made it more of, no, I'm a professional athlete, I'm going to stay ready year-round. So I'm not worried about Arlovski taking this fight on short notice, and I do like Arlovski, which is a wild thing to say in the year 2021. I just like his overall output and his ability to get in and out. We talk about the blitzes of Arlovski, and I do just think that blitzing movement is going to be enough to stifle the attack of Chase Sherman. Can Sherman move forward? Yes, he can, but the problem is, if Sherman's consistently moving forward, Arlovski still has really good vertical movement to his left and right. So if he is able to crack Sherman, on the way in and really use his movement, I do see Arlovski kind of walking his way to a unanimous decision.
And I mean, Clay makes a good point over in the comments section. Arlovski is efficient, good economy of motion. He does a good job at kicking and also checking the kicks. So for Chase Sherman, he can crack kicks, and that's one thing that he doesn't often employ a lot. Like, we saw it again last night, the main event. You had Phil Davis taking on the man himself, Vadim Nemkov, ultimately getting the win. For Nemkov, it might have been he cracked Phil Davis right in the shin and threw one kick hard, and then after that, he kind of stopped. I think maybe it was just bone on bone. For Nemkov, he did stop. But for me, I kept thinking, why don't you throw some more? I mean, it was working. You stifle the motion and you continue on. For Sherman, we'll see if he continues to invest in them, because he did against Ike Villanueva. And listen, Villanueva and Arlovski, even at 42, almost 43, they're worlds apart. This is a really tough fight for Chase Sherman. And listen, again, there's a lot of people kind of going back and forth in the comments section. I'm really looking forward to this, though.
I think this will be a great fight. My problem for Sherman, I don't care how hard you kick. If you get checked, it doesn't matter. Like, if your leg gets checked when you throw a kick, you're not throwing them anymore. You're just going to stop. That pain is insane. So even if Sherman is really dedicated to those leg kicks, Arlovski just has to be smart defensively one time to get rid of half of Chase Sherman's game plan. And for me, the forward movement of Sherman, it'll work against guys who don't have the veteran savviness of a guy like Andre Arlovski, but I just think Arlovski's been in there with so many top-level guys, and I know we talk about how Arlovski doesn't have the best chin ever. The guys who finish Andre Arlovski still have to be really, really good. Like, Tom Aspinall is an insanely good boxer, and he's led to get on the inside to hurt Arlovski and then submit him, so I do like Arlovski in this fight.
Yeah, it's really tricky. I mean, I want to go back up through the comments section. There was one from Ryan Brown. Appreciate you joining, even late. But, yeah, Gravely is there with Birchak. It's the first one. Maybe skipped it. Just go back through. Anthony saying, how about that Paul Daly win? How about that fight in general? Kevin McDonald took a page out of Chris Tione's playbook and just went, hey, just go at it, boys. And if somebody gets finished, they get finished. That was insane.
It was an awesome fight. Like, that could be fight of the year.
All right, Matt. So, finally, for the pick, you're leaning Arlovski. You haven't changed all week, right?
I'm confident with Arlovski.
Yeah, I'm confident with Chase Sherman. I mean, to me, Sherman gets hit, and that's the weird thing. You look at the output, the offensive output, and it was always against good competition. And 9 times out of 10, he was losing to the really good competition and beating the guys that he should have beat. But we've seen him go down to island fights, kind of learn, kind of get some decent wins. They weren't against the best level. Get cracked. You get cracked by Villanueva, but that's the thing. He gets cracked, but he doesn't really go down in some of those fights. In the fights that he's had recently, in the nice little win streak that he's had, hasn't gotten finished. So for me, I'm going with Chase Sherman. I do like the power. I do like the leg kicks. And we even saw it out of Aspinall. Threw one, got it checked, and then continued like he would
This is
throw
my
them
problem.
some
Though.
more.
Tom Aspinall could be champion one day. I think Tom Aspinall.
I agree.
Chase Sherman's never getting close to the belt. That's my problem. Like, for Sherman, I think he can incorporate some of those things that Aspinall did. I just don't think he can do them for the length of time that Aspinall was able to do. And that's my big problem. So I will be interested to see what version of Arlovski and Sherman we get in this fight. And hopefully we do see, maybe not a next contender, but if Sherman's able to beat a guy like Arlovski, this is something we talk about a lot. Beating Arlovski, no easy fights after that. So if Sherman's able to win that, it really is off to the races for him.
Anthony saying Arlovski, the best win on Sherman's resume. 100%, Matt. Our main event of the evening, we have a great fight. You look at this one, Jeremy Stephens taking on Jakar Close. Stephens coming up a weight class. He weighed in at 156, as did Close. And you would have to think the first guy that lands is going to have a good opportunity. The guy that backs up the other fighter, the guy that starts to land with pressure is going to get the win. And that's the interesting one. A lot of people really do like Jeremy Stephens in this fight. He still is the favorite in this one, and he's the type of guy that always employs a lot of pressure. And all the losses that he has, even in the 5-on-in, with the middle one being the sunglasses oddity that was the Ari Rodriguez fight, they're such good fighters. So it is tricky for Stephens, for Close. I mean, listen, Beneil Dariush is going to beat a lot of people, and he just so happened to beat Jakar Close quite a bit. So let us know in the comments section who you're going with. 682 tuning in, 146 likes. That's not enough. You got to toss up the like, and you got to toss up the sub. But I look at this one. Dev the Dude's got Jeremy Stephens. James saying, did we get the parlay? Yes, we did. James Brown saying Jakar Close. So, Matt, great fight. Let's see.
I like Jakar Close in this one. I really do. Now, for Jeremy Stephens, this is my issue. I know he's been fighting by far the better level of competition out of these two, but he's been getting hit a lot. And I mean a lot. It's not just the fact that he is losing to Jose Aldo and Calvin Kattar and Yair Rodriguez. It's the fact that he got dropped in all of those fights. And now the Zabit fight, it was kind of close, and Jeremy Stephens did bring it on later on in that fight. But the problem is, Zabit's never going to win a third round, pretty much ever. And for Jakar Close, he's just a good fighter. He's just well-rounded, but he's a good example of, I'm a good striker, but not a great striker. I have good volume, but not great volume. And I have good power, but not great power. I don't think Jakar Close is going to be a top 15 talent for the rest of his career by any means, but I do think that the size and the range that he's going to be able to keep in this fight is really going to give Stephens problems, because even to this day, we know what Jeremy Stephens does. He kind of ducks down, really loads up on his punches, and if he hits you with one of those shots, then yeah, you're probably going to go to sleep. But it's out on Jeremy Stephens. Like, there's so much film out there now that tells you what he's going to do. He's going to duck down, load up a lot, and if you're the faster fighter, you're going to be able to get from point A to point B a lot faster than he will. So for Close, it's not that I'm all that married to the pick and that I think Close is going to go on and do these great things in his career, but I do think he's the more technical fighter out of these two, and I do think at the end of the day, he's just the faster striker. So for Stephens, if he can shore up some of those defensive holes, but the problem is, those aren't things that just get fixed in one fight camp, and we've seen those be a problem fight after fight after fight. So I do like Jakar Close in this fight, but I do think entertainment-wise, this very much could be the fight of the night.
It is a great fight, and if you want to go back and watch a really good Jakar Close fight, and you got an hour and 15 minutes before the fight starts, you could. Remember that time he fought Devin Powell? You remember that?
I do.
Like, that was gross. Poor Devin. Remember that time he got a win with Bellator and then retired? How crazy. Just insane. Wells main zone. But I look at that, and I mean, when Jakar Close is on, this guy is on. His good wins, maybe not against the best level of competition. That's a weird thing. Jakar's close level, not up to Jeremy Stephens. Stephens has been doing it for so long, so the miles are on him, the tape's on him, you know what he's going to do, and he doesn't really change fight over fight. So we're looking at Jeremy Stephens again. He still is the favorite. We go over into the chat. James Brown saying, Stephens I like, but he seemed like he's just trying to convince himself that he's great. I mean, hey, like you tried to call Conor McGregor out of that.
It's just, okay, how many times in MMA do you see a guy lose 4 fights in a row and then go on a big long stretch later on in their career? It just doesn't happen all that often. So if you're going to go by history and what normally happens when you have a guy who's lost a lot of fights, who's now moving up in weight class in a later stage of his career, it's just a lot of warning signs if you do think Jeremy Stephens is going to win this fight.
All right, Matt, so you're going with Close?
I think Jakar Close has got this one.
Yeah, I have a hard time going with the underdog now. Later on in the week, I do like the fire out of Stephens. I hate changing picks because last week it totally screwed me, but I'm going to go with Jeremy Stephens. I'm going to disagree.
Wow.
I'm going to go with Stephens in this one, and for the reason that I opened this one up. If you look at Stephens, if he comes out of the gate quick, if he's really able to kind of land on Close and start to push him back, I think he's going to cause him issues. Close has to start quick. It's one of those ones for me, and I'm ever so slightly going to go with Alliance as Stephens in this one.
I think Close is going to counter him and probably drop him. Now, I don't think he's going to knock him out, but this is my problem. Jeremy Stephens loads up so much on his punches that when he does try to hit you with anything, if you do just throw a straight right down the middle, you can catch him. And Drakkar Close, he's got, like I said, he's a good striker, but not a great striker. And Drakkar Close doesn't do anything that really jumps off the page. It's not like he's going to go in there and throw a bunch of wheel kicks. He's just a good fundamental boxer, and I do think good fundamentals beats a guy like Jeremy Stephens. So for me, I'm going to stick with Close.
Matt's going with Close. I'm going to go with Stephens. And Matt, I'll tell you what else I'm going to go with, and I'm going to pop that one out there. Flowers are blooming, the grass is growing, and it's time to chop the weeds. Thanks to our sponsor, you know what it is. It's Manscaped. You can trim your hole safely and efficiently. I'm talking about ball trimmers. Manscaped, the global leaders in men's below-the-waist grooming, have an exclusive offer for our audience. Use the code FNP. If you haven't already, make sure you use it. You're going to get 20% off and free shipping on your order. Join the other 2 million men who trust Manscaped. They're here to make sure you are trimmed and smelling nice. After all, it's time for some spring cleaning, and spring has sprung, and Manscaped now has the best tools to get you ready. Matt, I have the shed here. If people don't know the shed, this one doesn't have tools and mice in it. Well, it does have tools.
It does have tools.
It has tools that you need. And if you check it out and if you get it, you're going to end up with the crop preserver. It's ball deodorant. It's great stuff. It's like a salve. And if you want to treat your nuts to a smelly but lovely smell bath, you just spray some of this on. And then you're good to go. And you want the real spritz? You want to check out the Crop Reviver Ball Toner. It's nice. Right there. It's great stuff. Listen, you got it in the comments section. Jorge Duarte saying, my grass is big. Well, Jorge, I got something for you. The Lawnmower 3.0. I honestly, and I'm not even joking. Now, hopefully it does start. I haven't charged this since I got it in what? Like November? Wow. Thing's still going. It's got the LED light, 90-hour battery life out of the sucker. It's got a ceramic edge blade. And listen, you know me, I'm a shower shaver. Voodoo Wiz, I don't know if she's going to pop into the chat. Hopefully not on that one. But if you're a shower shaver, you need to be able to see what you're doing. It has a great built-in LED. So if you've heard of the Weed Whacker, they also have that. I just dropped my microphone. I apologize for the noise. But the Weed Whacker, I do it every single week. Haven't charged this either. You can hear that working wonders. I have some pretty bad nose hair. So Matt, they're great products. What can you tell us about Manscaped?
If you want rusty nuts, this isn't the place to be. Because if you want something that really does work and works great, that's the thing about the battery life too. Like you say you haven't charged yours. I might have charged mine once since we've got them. Like the battery life really is ridiculous on these things. So it's not like it's going to die when you are in the shower using that great LED light. So really can't say enough great things about Manscaped.
The cologne that they have as well, it's good stuff. Let's see, refined cologne. You spray that stuff on. Ooh. It's light and it smells good and it smells like the rest of the products. Just get 20% off and free shipping with code FNP at manscaped.com. Do yourself a favor and always use the right tools for the job. And Matt, I'll flip that back out there again, but we're focusing on the comments section. People are going off my balls. SB saying which one is Matt and which one is Craig. Are you new? But if you're new, that's cool. I'm Craig. He's Matt. You can find me at Craig Allen FNP. You can find Matt at Matt Allen FNP. I never changed the graphics since I started. It's always been the same. Maybe I changed it up. But you can find us at Fight Night Picks as well. And with this one, we have Whittaker taking on Gastelum. It's a fight that's years in the making. I love it. You know, you've got Whittaker right up there at the top of the food chain. In the overall scheme of things, in the top 15, Kelvin Gastelum somewhere in the middle, almost closer to the bottom, but he's still in the middle. He's top 10. It's a really tough ask to go from Ian Heinisch to Whittaker. And for Whittaker, you look at the last two, the Jared Cannonier win, the Darren Till win. Now, Matt threw out a somewhat controversial statement saying that, listen, the Till fight or the Whittaker fight, Till and Whittaker could have gone either way. And some people said, you're crazy. Going to MMA decisions, there were a large proponent of MMA media members that scored it for Till. I had it for Whittaker, but it was close, right? It was close. He looked great in that Cannonier fight.
He did, and that was the thing. Robert Whittaker, it was like after he lost to Israel, he really had to go back and figure out, okay, what do I need to fix in my game? And I do think he was a little over-aggressive in that Till fight, and that's what did get him caught from now and then, because he was lunging in a lot. But then you look at him in the Cannonier fight, he seemed to have fixed that hole in his game, where he was lunging in, but he was doing it a lot smarter, and he was doing it with more, I guess with more confidence, you could say, because in the Cannonier fight, everything he threw had power on the end of it, and he hurt Cannonier on multiple different occasions. Now, for Gastelum, here's the thing. you say you don't really know where he is in the division. You know, he's always sort of in that 5 to 15 range. He can beat anyone with a number next to their name, though, and that's the weird thing about Kelvin Gastelum. He could lose to number 15 and beat number 2 on really any given day, because Kelvin Gastelum, he's just such a dangerous style of a fighter. What does he have? Well, he's got insane takedown defense, really good scrambling ability, and then if you do make it to the feet, oh, he's a ridiculous boxer with really good hand speed and great pop on his shots. The one thing about Kelvin Gastelum, and I don't have the exact stat up next to me, which it is a shame, Kelvin Gastelum has one of the higher knockdown rates in the UFC's middleweight division, and that does worry me a little bit because Whittaker is a guy who does get hit. Now, I do think he has fixed that as his career has progressed. And you look at him in the Cannonier fight. Cannonier doesn't really land all that clean on him, whereas Darren Till dropped him in the first round, then hit him with a nice elbow at the end of the fight. And that's really why I thought Till won that fight. I thought he landed the more damaging shots. For Kelvin Gastelum, this is the thing. Could he go out there and finish Robert Whittaker? I really think he could, and that's the weird thing about this fight. I think Whittaker could do pretty much everything right and still get caught with a shot in that 4th or 5th round and still go down. The one thing I will say is that I'm not concerned about either guy getting tired and really fatiguing a lot in this fight. You have two guys who have proven that they can really go a hard 5 rounds, and that's what makes this fight so fun. It's not like there's a big question mark. It's like, oh, Gastelum, this is the first time he's in a 5-round atmosphere. How's he going to look? Both guys look really, really good, and both guys have great cardio, so I'm so excited for this one.
We got to give props over in the comments section at Cash Jeep holding down the fort. DK Troll saying, what website do you vote on for who's going to win? At Fight Night Picks on Instagram. It's in the story. I put it out the morning before Kish. You get all day to get some of those votes in there, and then we bring it up. So let's talk about those votes, Matt, because we did kind of skip out on a few of them. But for this main event, holy smokes. Listen, 88% going with Whittaker. That's 431 total votes to 59. 682 tuning in right now. We just hit the 200 like mark. If we had half of these people liking it, we'd be up past 300, but we'll see what happens. This Wildlife, we appreciate you, everybody that's in the chat every single week. So again, just my 2 cents. The Whittaker Stan army will be sweating. It's a tricky fight because Kelvin Gastelum is so good in the pocket, such a tricky southpaw, nice little jab. And he does a great job when he employs his wrestling.
But my problem is, Robert Whittaker might be the greatest anti-wrestler of all time. Like, Robert Whittaker and Jose Aldo are the first 2 guys I think of who don't have really classically trained wrestling backgrounds. They just figured out, hey, I'm wicked at defending takedowns. Because the great thing about Whittaker is he can stand so far away, first of all, but then even if you do get on his hips, Yoel Romero actually tried to wrestle against Robert Whittaker, unlike he did against that Israel Adesanya, and Whittaker defended every takedown.
Really appreciate Sean over there saying, hey boys, had to get on and say hello. Let's get into it. And dropping a like now. And Candace Vogel was the 200th, so we appreciate you and Wyatt Kenny and John. But yeah, I just want to say, did you see the comment from Piotr Jan that he learned wrestling on YouTube and then decided he was going to employ it in his fights? Now, I don't believe anything Piotr says on the internet anymore, but that was pretty crazy to see. So if you missed that, crazy. But Matt, yeah, I have a hard time switching away from the Whittaker pick in this one.
Yeah. I like Whittaker quite a bit. I just think if Whittaker can incorporate his kicks, he's going to be able to catch Gastelum at some point, because Gastelum is used to countering in the pocket, and I do think Whittaker can do with his striking what Nick Lentz does with his grappling, where he can make you kind of fall into a false sense of security, and then he can whip out that really great head kick that we see in all of his highlight reels. So I do think Whittaker's going to be able to get this one done. Hopefully they do match him up with Israel sooner rather than later. I'd love to see that rematch.
Both of us going with Whittaker. Matt, let's flip it down and go through the entire card one more time. Like I said, toss us a like. We're at 245. I think we can get above 250 pretty easily, but really do, like I said, appreciate everybody tuning in week after week. Tomorrow, we're going to be working on our UFC 261 previews. There's a great graphic that's being done up by @GsFX over on Instagram, who does our thumbnails for the full card previews and does a hell of a job. So if you ever need any work, check them out. And at Davidson Baker, former friend of the show, current friend of the show, he's doing some music ensembles, and we just taped Early Stoppage last night. John Franklin and I did. New intro to that show, too. So, Matt, first fight on the card, Tony Gravely taking on the man himself, Anthony Birchak. Both of us going with Tony Gravely, I think. But the one thing, this is the first leg of the Fight Night Picks _kicks parlay. I've got it over 1.5 rounds.
Yeah, I like Gravely as well. I just think his wrestling's going to win out the majority of this fight.
Connor, where's my hat? It's behind. It's somewhere behind, but you can get one on the site. Matt, Austin Hubbard taking on Dakota Bush. I have a hard time with this one. I'm still going with Hubbard, but if Dakota Bush won, wouldn't be surprised at all. Pretty much everybody in the comments section had Bush to get the win.
I like the more proven guy, Hubbard, in this one. I really do.
Both of us going with Hubbard. Our next fight, Bartosz Fabinski, Gerald Meerschaert. Meerschaert could get him in a defensive submission, so if you like Meerschaert, kudos. But I've got Fabinski in this one to kind of hold him down.
Yeah, I like the wrestling of Fabinski along in this one, too. Just for Meerschaert, he's a little bit older, a little bit slower. I doubt he gets the submission.
All right, Matt. We move into our next fight. Jessica Penne taking on Loopy Godinez, the Mexican-Canadian. Really like Loopy Godinez and can't wait to see her fight more inside the octagon.
You don't get better at something by not doing it. Jessica Penne hasn't been in the UFC cage for almost 4 years, so yeah, I like Lupita in this one as well.
All right, Matt. We both like Godinez, Matt, Romanov, and Espino. Wrestling, sumo, everything. Love the fight. I've got Espino. No, I'm just kidding. I've got Romanov.
I like Romanov in this one. Again, I think his wrestling's going to dominate this fight. And if he can get on top, he can really damage Espino on the bottom. So I do like Romanov.
Logan S. saying Hubbard is trash. Logan S. The guy's in the UFC and he's a former LFA lightweight champ. Don't be a donkey. In the comments section, Tracy Cortez taking on Justine Kish. I absolutely am interested in the fight because this is the second leg of the Fight Night Picks Kicks parlay, as I have Tracy Cortez. Don't love the weight miss by half a pound, but I'm still going with her.
The weight miss concerns me just with regards to her cardio as the fight progresses, but no, I do agree. I like Tracy Cortez in this fight.
To answer the question from Matthew Doherty, apparently Gerald did wake up. Yikes, wish we could see Hamza back in the cage. Matt, we have Luis Pena taking on Alexander Munoz. I switched the pick. I'm going to go with Violent Bob Ross. Again, one-dimensional game plan, Swiss cheese takedown defense, but I do think if Pena gets taken down, if he can get himself back up a few times, work in some of the submission threats, work in some of the striking, I like the taller, bigger fighter here.
Yeah, he's just way more well-rounded at the end of the day. And for Munoz, if he does start to fatigue in this fight, then I do think Pena's really just going to pick him apart on the feet. So I like Pena in this one.
Matthew Doherty, apologies. I got to switch the pictures and continue on. Abdulrazak Alhassan is taking on Jacob Malcoon, and listen, I don't like the fight. I don't like the odds on Alhassan. I think they're silly, but I do like Alhassan in the fight because for Malcoon, you fought a power puncher in Phil Hawes who can also wrestle. He didn't need to wrestle in that fight.
He didn't.
You got Abdulrazak Alhassan, who has a judo background, rarely uses it, mostly striker. I like the striking. Malcoon could kind of outlast him, maybe hit some with a counter, but I still like Alhassan here.
No, I agree. I like Alhassan quite a bit. He's just the way more dominant striker out of these two, and if there's a finish, it's probably going to be him finishing Malcoon.
Logan S. wants a free t-shirt. Nah. All right, Matt, we continue on. We've got Andre Arlovski and Chase Sherman. I've got the move to elevation making a difference. I'm going to go with the guy, and Chase Sherman is the underdog here.
Arlovski's lost to a lot of fighters, but he's never lost to anyone as bad as Chase Sherman. So I'm hoping that doesn't start today. I am going to pick Andre Arlovski.
Matt's going with Arlovski, and in our co-main event, I went to the dark side. I went with Jeremy Stephens. Again, you don't like the 5-on-in. It's 0-4 with the 1-0 contest, but I'm still going to go with Stephens. I think the early pressure is going to make a difference. Again, not a 5-round fight. We got a 3-rounder against Jakar Close. Close knows the 3 rounds, and he can push a decent pace, but I still do. I'm going to go with Stephens.
I mean, for Jeremy Stephens, it's been a little bit since he's been in a 5-round fight. I do trust his cardio and everything, but I don't think Jeremy Stephens is going to go out there and just out-cardio Jakar Close by any means. So I do like Jakar Close. I think he's going to pick him apart as he moves into his shots. So I like Close quite a bit. I like him by decision as well.
Sean hitting us up in the super chat. We're both going with Ben Askren. Put the video out there. Didn't catch as much flack as I thought, so we're having a lot of fun. I mean, there was Bellator videos, there was Paul Askren. We went super in depth, and then people were surprised we were serious about it. But if we weren't serious, then where's the integrity in the whole channel? So you got to be serious. But yeah, we're both going with Ben Askren. We're split on this one though. I'm going Stephens. You're going Close. And in the main event, we're both going Whittaker. I love the fight. Overall, it's a great card. I mean, we talked potential fight of the night. The co-main event is a really good pick. The main event is an awesome fight. But for me, like, the fight that I've probably been most excited about since the start of the year, if it wasn't, and that's going to sound weird, but if it wasn't Paul Daly and Sabal Masi, it was Romanov and Espino. I love it.
I think Whittaker's going to get it done. This main event should be phenomenal. I'm super excited for this. It should be a great 5-round fight. It really should be. And this is one of those 5-round fights that it feels like it should be in a 5-round atmosphere. So I do like Whittaker, but I think it'll be a great fight for as long as it lasts.
Matt, love the card.
Yeah.
We got a big week planned for next week. We've got some really big interviews in the pipeline, and I'll let it be known right now. JHK got us one with Patchy Mix. He had a great take on the James Gallagher fight, and now the fight fell out. So I'm going to kind of distribute that one, cut it up, and put it on the social medias. But you can always find us at Fight Night Picks on Instagram and Twitter. Craig Allen FNP, Matt Allen FNP on the respective socials. And listen, love the fights this weekend. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy them out there. Make sure you check out Manscaped. Manscaped.com, promo code FNP. You're going to get 20% off and free shipping. Any parting thoughts, Matt?
No, it's going to be a great card. Let's all have fun watching it.
No, let's have fun watching it. So, as we always say with Fight Night Picks, Matt, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, it's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and Matt.